So college basketball was something I've never really been able to get myself into, but I'm trying my best to be prepared for next season. Obviously, we all know it is March Madness, it is the tourney, and if you listen to the podcast Time Out with J&G I did with Levi, we built our bracket and kind of put it out there, just again for fun. Like, we obviously hope we did pretty well, but we did it for fun, and we are not doing well. If I look at our bracket here, we had Auburn, St. John's, Wisconsin, and Gonzaga in our Final Four, and 3 of those teams at the time of recording are out. St. John's, Wisconsin, and Gonzaga all lost. Auburn is playing, I think, today. Auburn's playing Michigan on Friday, March 28th, so we won't know about that for about a week now. I probably could have lost that one too. Yeah, didn't do great. Didn't do great. That's for sure. I mean, we had Louisville beating Creighton. That didn't happen. We had Yale beating Texas A&M. That didn't happen. We had North Carolina beating Ole Miss. That didn't happen. Levi's idea was like, North Carolina maybe shouldn't have been in the tournament because of all the stuff going on. Not really familiar myself, but he was like, well, they weren't supposed to be there, but maybe that'll be enough to kind of have them make a run. It wasn't. We got New Mexico, Marquette correct. We got Michigan State, Bryant correct. Like, it's just, I don't know, Levi and I kind of had this idea that teams like Akron, teams like North Carolina could make these runs because usually every year you see 1 or 2 lower seeds make a run into the tourney, whether maybe even to the Sweet 16, maybe potentially the Elite 8, probably not the Elite 8. It's not looking like that's happening right now. McNeese had a big win. They upset. Then it didn't last very long there. They lost the very next game, and Boy Amir is done. I think it's how you say his name. Boy is going. But listen, the reason I haven't really been able to get into college basketball is like I just always struggled with the idea of it was always, and maybe in my eyes, maybe I'm wrong on this, and if I am, please enlighten me. I've always looked at college basketball as a little bit more of a sloppy version of basketball. And again, these are college athletes. Not all of them are going to go to the pros. So yeah, you're going to see more sloppy basketball because there are just at most of the time worst players out there. But I just always, I don't know, I feel like a lot of like dropped passes, a lot of like going up for a rebound and smacking it out of bounds, a lot of like messing up with the plays are. And again, these kids are learning, and I'm not really holding that against them, but I just always had a hard time with really getting into it. I want to see the more final product. I want to see, like, in the NBA, like, okay, this kid was good, like they saw it back then. I want to see what he looks like now. But I think the biggest change has been doing YouTube. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I do college, or I do NBA content, not for a living, like obviously I still have a full-time job, but like this is what I do. My content's about basketball. I'm really only focusing on the NBA. And I'll self-admit, I'm an NBA fan, like, because it's a difference. Like, people say, oh, I'm a basketball fan, but it's like, well, you can't really be a basketball fan if you only enjoy the NBA. If you're a basketball fan, you probably enjoy college, high school, AAU hoops, hoops leading all the way up to the NBA because you love the sport of basketball. And I used to be somebody that's like, yeah, I love basketball, which I do love basketball, but it's like, I enjoy the NBA product of basketball because I don't always love seeing the struggles of youth players and college players, and I realized that was dumb. That's just such a bad way to look at it. So this year, I told Levi and my other friends, I was like, listen, I'm going to use the NCAA tournament, I'm going to use March Madness to introduce myself into college basketball. Okay, I'm familiar with a lot of names going into the draft this year, so when I watch these games, I was watch Duke for Cooper Flag, but even watching teams like Arkansas, watching Boogie Flynn, like, people's like, okay, I know these guys are going to go somewhere higher in the draft, maybe a lottery pick, maybe a first round pick. I know who these players are, so let me watch their teams and be like, okay, now I want a good idea and an understanding of what these players are before they touch an NBA court. So that way, when I watch them play in an NBA court, I can be like, oh yeah, he does this. I watched him do this back in college. I kind of had an understanding of who he was as a player before he gets to the NBA, and I'm trying to introduce myself to players that way. And I'm hoping doing this and getting myself more into the March Madness tournament now will get me excited for the regular season next year. Now, again, the regular season of college basketball always coincides with the NBA season, and the NBA just being more what I'm into, I'm going to pay more attention to the NBA over the college regular season. But I at least want to challenge myself of watching multiple games a week. Listen, especially when you get to after All-Star break, the NBA kind of goes through a lull in their season where a lot of teams are eliminated or like kind of buying into the tank. And I cut off probably 10 to 12 NBA teams. Teams like the Nets, the Wizards, the Hornets, the Jazz, teams like that, I'm not watching. Like, I don't care if it's the only game of the night. If there's a match between the Hornets and the Wizards, I'm not tuning in. I'm gonna go hang out with my friends. I'm gonna do other stuff because it just doesn't matter at this point in the season. Maybe I guess for like draft odds, whichever team loses might be higher, but it just doesn't matter. And that's when I want to start filling my space with college basketball. It's like, okay, no NBA games are good tonight. Let me tune in to a college basketball game and see what's going on there. What's projected first overall pick gonna look like, or what's even better, what's a player that's supposed to go late lottery, late first round, early second round, what are those players looking like? Because one thing about the NBA is it's always going to be in need of older players coming out of college. Players that, have played 4 years in college that are going to be able to step onto a court right away and make an impact. It's just what it does. The Boston Celtics are a team that does that consistently because they're always at the back end of the first round. They bring in these older players that are more ready to compete right now instead of bringing in this 19-year-old that's like, listen, he has a lot of potential and a lot of skill, but he needs to be able to hone that in, needs to be able to kind of mold that into what we need at the NBA level, where it's like, you bring in older guys like a Dalton Connect for the Lakers, where it's like, they know their role, they know who they are, they know what they're doing on a court, so you can put them in the situations they're good at and what they're comfortable with if it helps you right now. And that's what I want to find. I want to be able to like go into next draft season and be like, oh yeah, I was watching this guy from Wisconsin, I was watching this guy from Creighton, and I'm like, yeah, I think, he's not going to go lottery, but I think he can make an impact on the team right away. That's something I want to be able to do. That's something I want to be able to, like, conversations I want to be able to have, and I got to be able to tune in for that more. And again, it's been a lot of fun. Another gripe I have is sometimes it is a pain in the ass to try to find a college basketball game. And I know a lot of people like, you can just pay for Paramount Plus, blah, blah, blah. No. I cut my cable. I don't do cable anymore because that got crazy expensive. And streaming sites I'm very, very weird about because some of them just black out games, and maybe I should take it more seriously and just get Paramount because I think you can watch a lot of the games on there. But I've been streaming some of these games, and I don't know. This tournament's been interesting because there has been a lot more blowouts this first two rounds than I think usual. I could be wrong about that. I haven't always been tuned in. If this is kind of a normal round of 64, round of 32, okay, maybe I'm just off on that. But I don't know. Alabama State had a good first half against Auburn, and then second half they got their brakes blown off. Same thing with Georgia got their brakes blown off the entire game. I was just hoping for a little bit more lower seed action or lower seed fighting than I think we got. And again, I know every year you can't have these 16 seeds win first round matchups. It just doesn't happen. Even a lot of experts are saying that maybe this year wasn't really the year for 15, 16 seeds to win games because they just didn't see it happen. Which, if that's the case, okay, it is what it is. Like, it just wasn't projected to happen. I always enjoy it more when you have the buzzer beaters. I always enjoy it more when you have the lower seeds win because I'm always going to root for a lower seed no matter what. Now, I'm a Penn State fan, so if Penn State ever finds herself in the tournament, I'm going to root for Penn State no matter what seed they are. But I'm always going to be a guy that's going to root for the underdog. I'm going to root for the Bryant to beat the Michigan State, for Lipscomb to beat Iowa State. I like to see that stuff happen because you love to see just the pure joy on those players' faces when they are one of those bottom seeds and they can take off a top seed. And again, on the flip side, being a 1-2 seed losing to a 16 seed, it's got to be one of the most heartbreaking things ever. So you hate to see that. But I'm really, really diving in, and I'm hoping you guys can kind of keep me to my word on that. And by name-dropping players that I'm not familiar with, name-dropping teams, like, tell me what your favorite college team is. Whether they're in a tournament or whether they're not, drop them in the comments so I can watch them next season. I can watch for these players, those teams next season. I grew up, it's for a short period of my, well, not a short period, but like the first couple years of my life, 10 years of my life, I grew up in Maryland, like Upper Maryland. And I was right off of Route 15, if you know, you know, but like Mount St. Mary's is a college I went by all the time growing up. And like, I think I like had this idea where I was like, oh yeah, it's like, I think it's a religious college. It was like, cool, Mount St. Mary's. I saw them, they're in the tournament. I was like, it completely took me back. Cause I'm like, this like religious college, smaller religious college, it's like not far from where I grew up, is in the tournament. And that was enough for me to watch their games because I was so interested in what they were going to do because they were close to me. You know, they're something I grew up near. I don't live there anymore. I moved into Pennsylvania. But I don't know. I like having those types of connections. And if I can build those connections with other teams, whether it's like they have a cool story with it. Like the McNeese guy with the aura. I know some people didn't like it, but I thought it was funny enough to at least get me interested in watching their games. Just so if you have a story about a college, about a player that's like near and dear to you, that's like, oh, it makes me want to watch that, let me know in the comments below so I can kind of check out those teams, see what's going on, because I think college basketball at the core is a lot of fun. I love college football because it's players trying to make a name for themselves, players are trying to get to the league, and I want to feel the same way about college basketball, so I'm hoping you guys can help me out.